Maki's Adventure is the first game by developer ZoroArts, a platformer where the player plays as the titular Maki, a spirit with the power to transform into different types of sharks. Using this power, Maki must fight, swim, jump and bite his way through a series of islands to restore the power he lost years ago and defeat the demon lord of the sea, Octavio. Maki's Adventure's gameplay can be summed up into three categories: platforming, collecting and minigames. The former is the main part of the game, with Maki able to roll around enemies and wall jump to reach new heights, and later on unlocks the ability to double jump and reach even further heights with a warp move. The core of this platforming is actually great, and with everything at your disposal it's even possible to sequence break some areas such as the forest island. Maki can attack foes using a scythe, which provides some simple combat. You can also bite underwater enemies when in shark form, or headbutt them if using his hammerhead shark transformation. There are 3 shark transformations in total, and each gets used to decent effect. You'll need to understand this combat to take down the bosses, which is honestly the weakest part of the game. There are several bosses and sub-bosses Maki will face on his journey, and they absorb damage like an evil sponge. Most bosses follow specific attack patterns with little variation, only changing up when their health is cut down by half. But to get to that point can feel like a grind, unless you drink one of the game's strength potions, which increases attack power for a full minute. Then it's suddenly the opposite issue, where enemies go down in literally no time. There's very little reason to buy anything other than the strength potions, as they make bosses ridiculously easy, and those will be the biggest challenges you face throughout the game. I suppose that makes sense, but they are also the weakest part of the game, so it's a challenge for multiple reasons. When the player isn't fighting and platforming through the game, there are several side quests that the player can be undertaking to get health upgrades and money to buy more potions. While the game initially felt like it was structured like a Donkey Kong Country game, you even collect Maki's name in each level, it's really more like a 2D Zelda game, as each level feels like a dungeon, but with NPCs littered throughout asking for favours. Some of these favours are required to complete for progress, like delivering ingredients to a chef to get a key for an elevator, while others provide upgrades. These missions, more often than not, require the player to go back to a previous level in order to complete them. But given there aren't that many levels in the first place, you can let these pile up and tick them off all at once. The upgrades to these missions are worth the effort though. That said, most of these side quests are simple fetch quests. Go to an area, acquire an item, and then come back. There are only 2 missions that will have you collecting multiple items throughout your journey: necklaces for a pirate and fish for a fisherman. And to get that fish, you have to fish, one of the game's several mini-games. There are a surprising number of side games in this title that don't really offer the player anything other than competing for the high score. You have darts, billiards, mixing cocktails, flying through rings, and much more. They kinda just exist as a break from the action, but honestly, I didn't find myself playing them more than once unless I needed to, although I did try to get the high score on the ring flying game. The cocktail mixing game is super annoying though. It requires mixing several coloured drinks to match the order, but some of these orders can be really precise, too precise even. It's a problem with relaying information to the player, and that is an issue throughout this game. Presentation wise, the music and graphics are nice, but there are several instances that show a lack of polish. The English script occasionally shows awkward grammar and dialogue that doesn't quite make sense based on the context of what's happened. In this scene, Maki's brother speaks like we weren't just in the same room 2 seconds ago. There are also some humorous glitches that can occur, like Maki's sprite not flipping when moving left, showing them walking backwards, which is really funny, I'm not gonna lie. What is annoying though is the visuals not being clear to the player in certain scenarios. The minecart is the main example of this. Standing on the minecart tracks will kill Maki, but there is no reason to think that until you step on them, as they don't look dangerous, they just are. And in later minecart sections, the players will have to make leaps of faith in order to land back onto the cart, because the camera just doesn't have the cart in frame, because it's always following Maki. It's this lack of polish that ultimately brings down a pretty fun platformer. Fans of this genre will enjoy Maki's Adventure, but it doesn't do anything too outlandish or original to stand out from others in the genre. Turning it into a shark is an interesting idea, but it would have been nice to see it used a bit more throughout the game, given it's the main gimmick. Still, Maki's Adventure is short and sweet, so if you're looking for a quick adventure to pass an evening or two, consider giving it a play. I want to thank the dev of the game Zoroarts for giving us a copy to review. I hope it does him well. There's going to be a link to the Steam page in the description below, so go and check it out if you're interested. Our patrons are also going to be on screen right now. If you want to know how you can join those lovely people, there is also a link in the description below for that as well. With that, subscribe and always remember to return to the source.